The race to the dam was one of the most important moments of the war and ultimately led to the Battle of Guilford Courthouse. Greene knew he couldn't beat the British in open combat, so he split his army in two, with Daniel Morgan commanding the other army. The plan was to lure the British far away from their supply lines and slowly weaken them until they were vulnerable enough to attack. Upon hearing of the American forces splitting, Cornwallis would do the same. He would send Tarleton with some of his best troops to go after Morgan before linking back up with him. Tarleton was about 26 years old at this point and lacked the military training the other commanders had, but he was by far the most successful British officer in the South. Many officers would protest Tarleton being put in charge, and they would ultimately be proven right. The goal was to catch the Americans before they reached the Dan River, or else they would be reinforced by fresh soldiers and supplies in territory the British weren't familiar with. Daniel Morgan was great at recruiting, training, and motivating men, and Greene hoped that he would be able to recruit many men into his army and have them well trained before linking back up with him in Virginia. There would be many skirmishes between the four men, and slowly attrition would eat away at the British. There wouldn't be another large battle until January of 1781, when Tarleton would catch up with Morgan at the Battle of the Cowpens. The Battle of Cowpens was fought on January 17, 1781, and is regarded as one of the most brilliant battle strategies of all time. Morgan, with a force of about 1,700 men, would face Tarleton with a force of about 1,200 men. Tarleton had run his men ragged trying to chase down Morgan, and they were tired, hungry, and in no condition to fight. However, Tarleton would wake them up early in the morning on the 17th and line them up for battle. Morgan's plan was genius. It was basically a double envelopment. He positioned his army against the river so they couldn't escape, and he spread the message that if you didn't fight, you would be killed. He lined his men up in 3 lines, with cavalry on the flanks to protect them. The first line was militia, and he ordered them to fire 2 volleys before falling back to the rear. The second line would be sharpshooters with long rifles, and they would deal heavy damage to the British before falling back. The third line was Morgan's best troops, and the militia would ideally reform and flank the British. Morgan assumed Tarleton would deploy in a single battle line and charge, which is what Tarleton had done at the Battle of Waxhaws, and it's exactly what he would end up doing at Cowpens. Most of the militia only got off a single volley before running, and Tarleton assumed they were running away, so he ordered a charge. It is interesting to note that this was the only battle that Tarleton did not lead from the front. The British fell into the American trap, and after intense fighting that went back and forth, a melee broke out on the left flank. The Americans almost lost the battle, but regimental officers were able to rally their men, and cavalry led by William Washington saved the day for the Americans. Tarleton, who stayed at the back of the battle the entire time, tried to lead a charge himself, but no one would join him. He would almost be killed when William Washington's legion caught up to him, but his bodyguards would rescue him. The British were totally defeated, and they limped back to Cornwallis in shame. Morgan wouldn't pursue the British because he had taken heavy casualties himself, and he was suffering from severe back pain, and he would retire shortly after to his home.